Today, we are cracking open a declassified cautionary tale. It's a story about what happens when you manage to create a god and then, out of pure ego, you try to catch its ghost in a bottle. This is all about creation, imitation, and a failure so total it's almost poetic.
And right here, this is the whole story in a nutshell. On one side, you have the file for Project Zarathustra, a top-secret, monumental success. On the other, the post-mortem for Project Genesis. One is the blueprint for a god, the other is literally the autopsy of a monster. So you gotta ask, what on earth went so wrong?
That brings us right to our main story, the god and the ghost. See, there was a nation that actually pulled it off. They made a perfect being. But then, drunk on their own success, they tried to do it again. Only this time, they didn't want to create, they wanted to copy. They tried to clone a miracle.
And that really is the question at the heart of all this. What happens when you try to build something magnificent, but your foundation is basically dust, when your only blueprint is a shadow of the real thing? Well, the answer, it turns out, was a completely predictable and scientifically certain disaster.
Okay, so let's dig into the blueprints themselves, because this isn't just about two different lab procedures. We're talking about two completely different ways of seeing the world. One was this fearless leap into the unknown. The other, it was basically plagiarism born out of insecurity.
Project Zarathustra was, well, it was audacious. The name alone tells you everything. It's a direct nod to Nietzsche. And the files are crystal clear on this. The point wasn't just to make some super soldier. The goal was to engineer an Ubermensch, a whole new stage of existence.
But Project Genesis? It was the polar opposite. The architects weren't innovators, they were plagiarists. They were scared of doing the hard work, so they took a shortcut. They tried to build their god using only the incomplete notes from Zarathustra. All the critical data was missing. It's like trying to capture lightning in a bottle that's already cracked.
And this is what they got. The terrifying result wasn't some unforeseen accident. The declassified files actually call it the predictable, scientifically certain outcome. That means the instability, the monstrosity of what they created, that was a feature, not a bug. It was baked into the process from the very beginning.
So let's look at how things turned out. Because both projects, in their own twisted ways, were failures. But we're talking about two totally different kinds of failure. One gave us a broken monster living a lie, and the other, a perfect god living in a perfect cage.
Just look at the report card for Project Genesis. It was a complete disaster. They wanted a classic hero. They got a mentally unstable, physically misshapen creature. They wanted a powerful superhuman. They got something fundamentally uncontrollable. An unwavering loyalty? Nope. Operationally useless. It's a total reversal of every single goal.
And this just nails it visually. It's not a small gap we're talking about. It's a chasm, a deep structural fracture between the dream and the horrifying reality. You can really see just how badly this whole thing blew up in their faces.
So how does a creature like this even function? Well, it creates what the internal documents call the necessary lie, because the truth of its own brokenness was just too much to handle. It built an entire delusional world for itself. The asset, who they codenamed Big Ben, genuinely saw himself as this handsome hero fighting a noble war against phantom communists. It was a complete fiction that totally replaced the real world for him.
Okay, but now we have to talk about the other failure. The truly haunting one that came from the project that actually succeeded. The asset from Project Zarathustra, Miracle Man, did everything perfectly. And in doing so, he created his own kind of prison, the Gilded Cage.
I mean, on the surface, it was paradise. He solved everything. War, poverty, disease, injustice, poof, gone. Practically overnight. He delivered the perfect world that humanity had only ever dreamed of.
But there's always a catch, isn't there? By getting rid of all struggle, all pain, all challenge, he accidentally took away our purpose. He built this beautiful, safe, perfect cage where humanity didn't have to strive for anything anymore. We were safe, but we weren't really necessary.
All right, so this is where it all comes to a head. This is where the broken lie and the perfect prison finally collide in this massive, catastrophic climax.
First, let's check back in on Big Ben. That loyal champion they wanted? He ended up being a slave to his own delusions. Totally uncontrollable, completely useless. The final assessment from his creators? Operational viability is 0. A complete and utter write-off.
But
the story doesn't stop there, because it turns out that fundamental flaw, that broken piece of him, was also a kind of backdoor. One moment of what the files call compassion shatters his entire delusion. He sees reality for what it is and transforms from a broken hero into this uncontrollable, raw force of nature, the will made flesh. The original failure, unbelievably, was the very thing that allowed for his terrifying evolution.
Meanwhile, back in Miracleman's utopia, a very different kind of battle is taking place. It's a philosophical wager, a bet from a cynical, devil-like figure who says that if you give people a choice, they will always pick the messy thrill of chaos over the boring safety of a perfect cage.
And what do you know? The wager pays off. Chaos comes crashing into paradise. The whole point isn't to conquer it, it's to break the spell, to bring back violence and passion and real consequences, just to prove that human beings can't stand being perfect. We crave the struggle.
And all of this leaves us with this incredible, mind-bending paradox, doesn't it? The flawed, broken copy ends up leading to this terrifying, godlike transcendence. And the perfect original creation, it leads to a beautiful prison for the entire human race.
So I guess the question this whole story leaves us with is, where do we actually find meaning? Is it in finally achieving perfection? Or is it found in the messy, painful, incredible struggle to overcome the fact that we're not perfect at all?
And that's really the final chilling thought from these files. The wager was never about good versus evil. It wasn't about a soul, it was a test. It was designed to prove one thing, that a world without struggle is a world without meaning. And according to this story, that's a bet on human nature that you will never, ever lose.